Hello, hello. Are we live? Hello, hello. It looks like we're live now. It's been a while since we've done a stream. It's pretty nice to be streaming again. Let's see, is everything in order? Let's see. All right. Looks like things are good. Well, today we are checking out Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, I am a massive Dragon's Dogma fan, if you guys are unaware. Dragon's Dogma was the game that like made me put down Skyrim. Like I absolutely loved, and I absolutely loved Skyrim. But Dragon's Dogma was just where it was at. I mean, maybe we might do a Dragon's Dogma stream. Like for the first one, I have Dragon's Dogma on my computer, so I played Dragon's Dogma on the 360, and so that's where my big Magic Archer big Magic Archer account is. But I actually know that Dragon's Dogma Online was also a thing. I did not play Dragon's Dogma Online. Unfortunately, it got shut down. I heard, which was pretty sad. But apparently, there's like a fan like archive, or maybe not archive, but like a redo of Dragon's Dogma Online, which like fans have been like making it. Uh, so it's like sort of like a beta, I guess. I'm not too sure, but fans are like making Dragon's Dogma online again. I don't know if that's like already a thing or if they're still working on it, but it's pretty cool. But anyway, to those of you who are wondering what we are doing today, basically we're gonna be taking a look at what we know about Dragon's Dogma 2. I mean, I haven't really, I don't think I've seen everything that they've put out for Dragon's Dogma 2, so we're just gonna take a look at it. Looks like first things first, we've got the first trailer from Capcom USA. Let me just size this a bit. Okay. All right, that should be better. All right, so we got Capcom USA first trailer for Dragon's Dogma 2. Let's take a look at this. It looks so good. I do know that they are using the RE engine for this, which is, it looks really good. It looks really good. Man, and Grigori also looks really really good this time around. I like how. Wait. Let's go back a bit. So with Grigori, his like, I think his wings are different. Let me see if I can. Here, let's just pull up a image of Dragon's Dogma Grigori. All right, let's just pull up an image of. Yeah. So this right here. Yeah, so his wings look different this time around, if I'm not mistaken. He's also got a crown this time. And his horns are like, I think his horns look about the same. I saw the up close picture. His teeth definitely look different this time around. And his tail is probably the biggest change. Let's just pull up the logo and just see how the logo changed. Okay, so yeah, his wings. Yeah, he lost his thumbs. It looks like he lost his little thumbs he had. And yeah, his entire like snout is different. His tail is different. And he's got another claw here. I don't completely remember all of my Dragon's Dogma lore, so but I do believe every dragon is called Grigori. Like every dragon that goes for the arisen, I believe it's always Grigori. Even if it's like a different person or a different soul, I don't remember.
You do not remember? Then have you forgotten that you protected me from the dragon's flames?
You need only believe in your own destiny, Arisen.
Yeah. So I also remember we've got like new races now. Well, I don't know if it's more than one race. But we got like a Khajiit. We got like an Elder Scrolls Khajiit race. That's basically just like a part of the world now, I guess. Which is interesting because that was like never a thing before, at least not in Dragon's Dogma 1, which was, I mean like with Dragon's Dogma 1, even though the world itself wasn't that small, it never really, like, you only had one city, and there wasn't like a whole lot of variation, I suppose, or it just didn't feel like, even though there's an open world, everything felt a little repetitive sometimes. Like all the bandits all kind of felt the same, all the goblins kind of felt the same. The only time the world really felt like it changed was when you kill Grigori. That's the only time that like the entire world really feels like it changes. But it feels like we're getting more focus on the world. You know, it feels like because like the characters, even the characters in the first Dragon's Dogma, they didn't feel like the focus of the game. You know, like the game was really just like an excuse to fight and just to use the amazing combat system they had in the first game.
Not remember? Then have you forgotten that you protected me from the dragon's flames?
You need only believe in your own destiny, Arisen.
It looks so good.
That begs the question.
I really hope that they buff Warrior, not necessarily a stat buff, but just give Warrior 6 skill slots. In the first game, they only, for some reason, Warrior only has 3. I mean, I guess you have 3 weapon slots, right? You have 3 skill slots per weapon or per equipment. So like a fighter would have 3 sword slots and 3 shield slots, or or you'd have 3 bow slots and 3 dagger slots. But since Warrior only uses 1 two-handed weapon, they only get 3 skills. Which, I mean, some people argue, like, a Warrior doesn't need 6 skills, and you don't even use the skills that often with Warrior, but, I mean, it depends. But overall, Warrior was just, some people say, I mean, you get a lot of damage in one hit, especially when you use, like, Arc of Deliverance with Warrior, but the problem is, it doesn't really have the consistency or just the regular amount of damage output that the other classes do. I mean, Magic Archer by far was the best class in the first game, just because it had insane damage. You could target elemental weaknesses easily, and you just never had to worry about like being hit, because you could just like roll or just like run away and shoot them with like whatever their elemental weakness was. Also, Magic Archer's like immolation was underrated, in my opinion. I feel like, I mean, immolation, I don't really know if it's like that good even, but just the feeling of just using immolation and then just using like any like dagger skill, or just like Scarlet Kisses, or I guess 100 Kisses while climbing a boss while immolated. I mean, it's just an amazing feeling, and you get so much damage on Magic Archer.
If he's a mere mummer, then where might our true...
Ooh, but we gotta look at these skills. So we've got this is Magic Archer right here, but also we had just like a mage or sorcerer. So this looks like a ranger here. That looks like a longbow they're using. Yeah, so this is like a longbow, and there's the golem. There's our stone golem. It looks like the stone golems are more like brown clay, but the purple thing is still there. It looks like we still need to hit the magic metals on them to destroy them.
Then where might our...
And it looks like we got like you have like a telekinesis spell or something, but we're not using the staff to cast it, because usually you'll like hold up your staff in the first game, or you'll do like an animation with the staff and like use it. But here it looks like the skill isn't tied to the weapon, which draws the question of whether we have like skills that are augments, or maybe it is just a weapon skill, but the animation isn't on the weapon.
Question: if he's a mere mummer, then where might...
That's an interesting spell though. So it looks like we have like a telekinesis spell that I'm curious to know if that is a mage or a sorcerer spell, or I know there's new classes, or at least they said there's going to be like at least one new class, I think.
Are true arisen, Empress Nadinia's life.
And that was like a lot of arrows. So that looks like lightning. That looks like a lightning enchant, but they're not using ricochet arrows. Those aren't ricochet arrows, and they're not ice, so it's not like 6-fold or 9-fold bolts. So it could be. Is there like a lightning homing? Well, I guess all the shots on Magic Archer are homing, but yeah. I mean, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At least 7. But it looked like more than that. Yeah, they shoot multiple times, it looks like. So, and it looks like a lightning enchant. It doesn't look like a holy enchant, so it's not like a seeker. And it's not ricochet, so it could be a new spell.
Empress Nadinia's life is in your hands, Sir Arisen.
Empress. Whoa, wait. Let's go back. Empress Nadina. Empress Nadinia's life is in your hand. Is Nadinia? Is that the new Khajiit like priestess? I don't think so.
Your hands, Sir Arisen.
Praise be, for only the sovereign's guidance can lead us true.
The sovereign.
The sovereign of Vermont!
Sovereign of Vermont. Is that the new location? So about the first game we were in Grand Sis, right? Or Grand Soren. We were in Grand Soren of Grand Sis. So there was the Duke of Grand Soren. So now is like the new Duke, the Sovereign of Vermont. I don't really know the map of Grand Sis that well. Let's see. This might just give me, I don't know if this will just give me from the first game or not. Yeah, this looks like it's just the first game. Well, Grancis might not, it probably isn't the entire world. You know, Grancis is probably just the area of the first game. I don't know, I don't really know too much about the world itself for Dragon's Dogma. I didn't play Dragon's Dogma online, and I'm not too sure how expansive it is, or like if there's multiple continents or anything. But let's see. Alright, so we still got was this Brontide? I don't remember if Brontide was the lightning whip, or I don't remember what the meteor spell was for Dragon's Dogma. But let's see. I do remember that the meteor spell is a little deceptive, at least in the first game, because you'll cast it and you'll think that you got it, but it's sort of like luck based. Like if it hits anyone, you only really use it on like groups of enemies, which like you'd think if you have like a meteor spell and it takes a massive amount of time to cast, you'd think you'd use it on like a big boss, right? But there would be like, if you cast it on a boss, maybe only like one, or maybe just one, like only one meteor is really gonna hit it, from what I remember. Because unless you're like in a small area, because it's like based on the amount of enemies I think that are aggroed, if I remember right. You know, I could be spouting misinformation on the internet, but I'm pretty sure I remember it's basically a crowd control spell, which is kind of disappointing because the only times you really run into big crowds, you're not really going to get a chance to have such a long cast time, nor will you really need one because you could just kind of fire off Kama Station and that'll like eat up crowds pretty well. You can use Grapnel to like bind them, or just be like any other class. But then Sorcerer, I mean, Sorcerer isn't bad at all. But Honestly, holy focus bolt is the way to go for the staffs because you just get a homing holy missiles. It's just when you just holy enchant yourself and use your core skill for focus bolt. That was the best way to go, I remember. But if we look at that from before, you got a sensor. That's a new, that looks like it's either a sensor or a flail. I'm not too sure. It also looks like we got some new flash. Yeah, that looks like a sensor to me. So, but we're using it to create a path. So it's possible that it could be an item. It could possibly be an item that you use to like traverse areas, but I'm hoping that it is an actual weapon and that we maybe even get a new class like a holy priest or something. I mean, they could just use it for mage or sorcerer, but to have like a priest class or something, that'd be pretty cool. And then this is the new city. This looks pretty awesome. I'm guessing that this is like either the new city or maybe one of the new cities. I'm not sure if we're gonna get multiple cities. I'm not sure if they said that. If they said they were gonna get multiple locations for like main hubs in this game, because in the first game you just had Grand Soren, and then I guess there was technically the DLC area for Bitter Black Isle, which I mean for anyone who's been playing the game for any significant amount of time, I guess Bitter Black Isle is essentially the entire game to them. So, but still. Hey, we gotta go back. Is that so? That's what Grigori looks like now. It's very, very vascular. All right, so this is Grigori. His face doesn't look that different from the front, though his teeth are definitely more like outstretched. Griffin, ogres. Ogres in the open. I don't remember if there was ever an ogre out in the open in the first game. I cannot remember an ogre ever being out in the open. They were always like in the caves or in like the Everfall pre Grigori. There's like one ogre in the Everfall before you kill Grigori. It's like one of the first quests you do after you get to Grand Soren. And then there's also like a bunch of ogres in the caves, like the mines, that you go in between to get from like the east to the west side of Grancis. And then we've also got some emotes, and also looks like environmental damage. So right here, it looks like you can like destroy bridges and stuff now. And wait, let's look at that a little closer. It looks like the the bison. Yeah, he's just like standing there. Yeah, it's just upright. And so I mean, I'm not ripping into that too much. I don't expect them to have a bison physics through and through, but yeah, it looks like was that the player that did that, or was that the Cyclops? Okay, it looks like the Cyclops can destroy the bridge and interrupt your cast. And then the Riftstones look about the same. I think they look about the same as before. And then here the Gorgon. I believe that's Gorgon. If I had to guess, I'd assume this would be like the Hydra fight. This is probably like the Hydra, but maybe like a Hydra mixed with the. It might be more like the Beholder fight. Actually, it's most likely more like the Beholder fight. Mainly because the Beholder also has petrification on it. So I assume it'd be similar. Like you probably have to avoid Medusa's gaze, so you don't get petrified, while you slowly cut off the snakes from her head, similar to the Beholder and how you like cut off his tentacles. And then the Sphinx, we've got we've got a Sphinx, which I assume would be similar to the Griffin fight if I had to guess. Though it kind of looks like, I'm not sure if those are like peacock feathers or if those are actually eyes on her wings. Then she's probably a more magic focused fight. If I had to guess, probably more mage focused. It might be like a chimera fight, honestly, where you have to deal with like magic attacks and then also like physical pounces. And then there's the Griffin. And then I'm guessing this is the Sovereign of Vermund right here. And it looks like we kind of got 3 characters as well as the Sovereign here. So got like a warrior, and then looks like a mage and a strider. That looks like a short bow from here. That could be a long bow. I think that's a strider, though. Could be a ranger. I'm pretty sure that's a strider though. And then probably a mage, maybe a healer. I'm guessing from this lineup, it makes me think there's gonna be either a boss fight or maybe you can like pick one of these to be a part of your party, like instead of a pawn, maybe. Like you'd have your main pawn, and then maybe you can pick one of them, or maybe there's just story elements. The first game's story felt a little lackluster sometimes. Suki, hello, I'm glad you could make it. Glad you could stop by. Today we're looking at Dragon's Dogma 2, which the trailers are kind of popping out, and I wanted to check it out. I'm a massive fan of the first Dragon's Dogma, so I'm very, very excited that it got a sequel. I actually heard that Devil May Cry 5 was basically one of the contenders. So when they were deciding whether to make Devil May Cry 5, apparently the other option, and I don't know if this is completely true, but apparently the other option was Dragon's Dogma 2. So they were picking between DMC 5 and Dragon's Dogma 2. I've always wanted to try it, but maybe now's the time. Yeah, I'd say this is honestly, I don't know if it's still on sale, but I know Dragon's Dogma, the first one on Steam, is like $5 right now, I think. It goes on sale fairly often, honestly. The last I checked, it was like $5. And it's a really good game. I played a lot of it on the 360, the Xbox 360, but I got it on Steam as well. So I might do a couple of Dragon's Dogma streams, but it's the combat is really what makes I have the most fun with Dragon's Dogma combat, because it almost feels like you're a Monster Hunter like a main character. It feels like you're playing Monster Hunter but in like a JRPG setting, and you can also like customize your moveset. So there's like 9 classes, and you can like change which skills you have in your moveset. And it looks like they're adding more than 9 classes now though, because we got this this like holy class, or I don't know if it's a holy class, but they're wielding like a censer right here. So this looks like a new support class or something they're adding to the game. Right, and then I think the big thing that Dragon's Dogma does so well, I think, is magic. I think like they honestly make the magic feel so impactful. The best way I have to just like compare it is like with Skyrim. You know, like with Skyrim, you just take a spell and you just keep casting it, and it's just like a DPS game. But with Dragon's Dogma, the magic feels like it feels like it embraces your environment. You play different spells compared to, or depending on different environments. You know, you can choose how to enchant weapons. And what I really like also about Dragon's Dogma is each enchantment you do for each weapon, it does something different. So like if you enchant a staff with fire, then you'll just kind of get like you know, it'll do like burning damage, and you might burn an enemy when you do like your basic attack. But if you enchant it with like ice, it might freeze. But then when you enchant it with like holy element, you will like it'll create like homing missiles. And then when you enchant it with like lightning per se, it'll create like ricochet missiles. So if you're like in a tight room, you can enchant someone with lightning and make their magic bullets like ricochet around the room. Versus when you're in like say you're in like a really open area and you don't have time to really like aim properly, you can enchant yourself or someone else with, well, this is a single player game, so mainly yourself, but you can have pawns, which are basically like AI followers, and you can enchant them with like holy, and so you can just give people like homing missiles that do a lot of damage. Honestly, the homing missiles in the first game were kind of insane with damage. But yeah, it seems like this, right, there's Grigori. So this is what he looks like in this game. In the first game, oh wait, Grigori. In the first game, Grigori kind of looked like, well, he looked like this. Let me see if I can get a good up-close image of him. But yeah, Suki, if you haven't tried Dragon's Dogma, I really recommend it. Though, I mean, obviously, it isn't for everyone. You know, if you really value like story-based games and how a story is presented in a game, then Dragon's Dogma might not be your biggest thing. That's a big dragon. Yeah. Because I mean, some people really like how the story is in Dragon's Dogma because it introduces itself as a very like basic, like straightforward plot, but then at the end it kind of has like a big twist and everything. But I'd say the main thing about Dragon's Dogma is really just the combat and finding a class you like and finding how to like maximize your damage and the skills you like to use, because you could play like the Strider class, which is like your traditional rogue class, and you could play it like a trapper, or you could play it as like someone who climbs onto big enemies and like slashes them on top of their back, stuff like that. And so each class has like a good amount of variation in it. But yeah, I guess this is what Grigori looks like now. He's got like a gnarled teeth and stuff. And then there's the Griffin. Yeah, so this is interesting. It looks like enemies can do environmental damage now. I don't know if the bridges are going to be like the full extent to it, but it would be interesting to see if enemies could like destroy trees and stuff like while you're fighting them, because it would be cool if you could like duck behind a tree for cover, and like maybe you're fighting, I don't know, like maybe a wyvern or something, and maybe it does like fire breath and it like starts burning down the forest or something. That'd be interesting to see, but I also don't know how plausible that is. Like that would probably be a lot of effort from a dev team to do permanent environmental damage, so it would probably like reset the forest every like 10 minutes or something. Right, so yeah, it looks like they added, so these were the big two hard hitters for me. Was they added a Gorgon or Gorgon, and they added a Sphinx. And I'm assuming they've probably added more bosses, but so what I'm thinking is I'm a little worried about the Medusa fight, because it could be unique, it could be different, but I'm worried that it's just going to be the Beholder fight again, because I mean, Medusa's whole thing is like petrification, but that was also the Beholder's whole thing. And then she's got like the multiple snake hair, while the Beholder has like the multiple tentacles. I just don't want it to be like the exact same fight with just a reskin. The Sphinx looks cool.
That is most unfortunate, but it doth not release thee from thy fate.
Yeah, so Grigori's going ham there. Right. And if you look at it honestly, you can also see Grigori's tail. It's like a coil, like a barbed coil now, which is pretty cool. But that was just the first trailer from Capcom USA. Let's see what else. Let's see, we've got the full presentation here for the showcase 2 days ago. Let's see, 2 days ago.
What did you think?
We got a dev gameplay overview.
The action RPG game Dragon's Dogma was released in 2012. Now, a decade later, I'm proud to share a look at the highly anticipated sequel, Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yeah, so it looks like they've added like a cat race, like a Khajiit from Elder Scrolls. They've added like one of these, and then what's also interesting to me is that they're focusing a lot on like characters rather than just like the dragon and that you slay it. Because in the first Dragon's Dogma, it was the characters didn't feel like they had a massive impact. Like the romance system in the first Dragon's Dogma, you could literally romance any NPC, like just any NPC in the overworld. You could literally just walk up to them and you just could gift them stuff, and it would increase their affinity. And then the romance system was also kind of like it was not very fleshed out, because the entire like extent of the romance is like you save them and then they like you and then they live in your house, and that's about it. So but I mean, the romance wasn't really a big part of the game in my opinion. The DLC though, I have to say, the DLC added a lot. Like, I added an entirely other game to Dragon's Dogma, and I'm curious if they'll do something like that for this game, because the DLC added like an entire roguelike into the JRPG that already existed. So I'm curious if how they're gonna handle that.
Today I want to talk about two characteristics that Dragon's Dogma 2 will inherit from its predecessor.
Alright, let's see.
First, Dragon's Dogma 2 will be a single-player game, but with pawns at your side, it will feel like co-op.
Yeah, so the pawn system in the first game, basically you would have an adventuring party of 4, basically. And so you basically were a party of 4 and you'd go off to slay the dragon. You'd have one of those party members would be a main pawn, which is another character you create, and that's basically like your follower for the entirety of the game. And you can freely change classes and stuff, so you don't really have to worry too much about it. And then the thing is, other characters have their own, or other players of the game, if you connect online, they have their own main pawns, and you can basically add someone else's main pawn to your party and go adventuring with them. And then there's also just like NPC AI pawns that you can recruit to your party, and then you can part ways and recruit a different one just freely. And so you could like freely manage your party however you want. But I was honestly kind of hoping they'd add multiplayer to Dragon's Dogma, because I feel like they definitely could, but it would probably add some odd quest interactions, I suppose.
Pawns at your side, it will feel like co-op. And second, gameplay will feature action role-playing mechanics set in an open-world environment. In the Dragon's Dogma series, you embark on your adventures with pawns, otherworldly beings controlled by AI.
He's kind of explaining it here
Alongside the
now.
player-controlled Arisen, you can embark on your journey with a main pawn that can be customized to your liking.
Also, that armor looks nice. I know they're using the RE engine, but this game looks really, really nice. And what also interests me is that the main pawn can be one of these Khajiits, this new Khajiit race that they added, which makes me curious about how much they're going to talk about what pawns are. I didn't play Dragon's Dogma Online, so I don't know if anything was explained there. But I know in the original Dragon's Dogma, it kind of felt like pawns. It was a little. I mean, they kind of delved into it, and I don't want to. I don't want to say they didn't explain pawns, because they kind of showed what the pawn's purpose was, and they showed like why the pawns were there. But I'm curious if they'll kind of explain a little more about just how someone becomes a pawn. I don't think I missed that in the first game, so I don't think they really explained it too much. Or just kind of how pawns are made. I suppose they did kind of show a little bit at the sort of the post game ending for Dragon's Dogma 1. They kind of showed a pawn getting created, but it was a little unclear. You know, I'd be interested to see some lore explanation, and they might have that just like in like a book or something. I'd have to check.
As well as up to 2 additional support pawns you can borrow from other players.
Right. So
to form a party of up to 4 characters.
All right, so the adventure party is still
Pawns
4.
are controlled by the AI and are now capable of even more precise decisions than in the previous title, helping you in the midst of battle. They can also help guide you to new locations.
The blood effect looks really, really nice. Honestly, those physics look really nice.
They can also help guide you to new locations. Or give you a high five following a successful battle. It really feels like playing in a party with other players. Dragon's Dogma 2 is built with the RE engine, resulting in a dense world woven with high graphical fidelity. You'll enjoy a world roughly 4 times the size of the original Dragon's Dogma, with more to experience.
I'm curious about that. 4 times the size of the original. I mean, the original Dragon's Dogma, it was pretty big. You know, it was a pretty big world, but also it sometimes felt like there wasn't a whole lot in it. You know, like you'd have all these different magic abilities and combat abilities, but it felt like the enemies in the world didn't really justify that amount of combat freedom, which is something I think the DLC did a really good job of dealing with. I think the DLC really added a lot of just a lot of new scenarios, new enemies, and new environments to use a lot more skills and abilities that you get even in the base game. But I'm curious to see what they're gonna add in terms of enemies, because so far the only things we've seen that are new have been a couple of bosses. You know, we haven't really seen any mobs that are original and new.
Original Dragon's Dogma, with more to experience than ever before. The characters and monsters that populate
so we're still seeing
world
the same
are
goblins.
given life thanks to the power of AI, and players will feel like they've been reborn in this vibrant fantasy world. You can look forward to a variety of vocations to choose from. Your vocation will shape your Arisen's role throughout the adventure.
Right, and this is something that honestly I think they should explain a little differently, because when they say your vocation will shape your role throughout your adventure, you know, in the first game you could freely change your vocation whenever you wanted. Well, sort of whenever you wanted. You had to go to the inn and then you change your class there. Here I'm a little curious why they're saying that. I mean, because when you level up, your level up stats are different based on what class you are. So if you're like playing a mage class, your magic will go up, but if you're playing like a fighter class, your health or your stamina would go up, or your physical attack would go up, stuff like that. And so when you're like level 200, you'd be better suited to one class as opposed to another based on how much you played each class in the game.
Will you take on enemies with swords? Magic? It's all up to you. We'll have much more to share in the future, but for now,
Right.
I want to go over a few sections from the trailer that show what we've improved for Dragon's Dogma 2.
Okay, I'm curious.
This game is designed to enable players to take on situations in their own way. In addition to AI, advanced technology like immersive physics brings pawns, monsters, and NPCs to life.
All right.
What would happen if you destroyed that bridge, or if you pulled that monster's leg? What other exciting possibilities?
That's interesting. I'm curious what they mean by pulls that monster's leg, because in the first game you can definitely like grab onto bosses and stuff. Like you can grab onto Cyclopses, and I mean you could see it earlier. They were like climbing on the monsters, but when they say like pull that monster's leg, I'm wondering if that's like a new skill, like sort of like in the first game Striders, which are basically like the rogue thief class. they could ensnare enemies, like you could trap someone. So I'm curious if that's like a new skill, maybe, that to like pull an enemy towards you. That I feel like that might have been in the base game actually. Striders might have had that ability to like pull an enemy closer. So I'm curious about that.
Meet 2 characters pivotal to the story.
And now this is a big thing. Like having a character-focused story is something that was not really there in the first Dragon's Dogma. You know, you had a villain, and you had the dragon, who was also kind of a villain, and then you had like a couple characters that were reoccurring and that you could like interact with in different ways, but it never really felt like they were pivotal to the story, aside from maybe the Duke from the first game. He was kind of pivotal, I guess. Like Mercedes and Julian, you know, they had like a whole fiasco in the first game, but it wasn't really like, it felt like a side quest, you know, it didn't really feel like a main quest. In this game, I'm curious how they're gonna make, how they're gonna tie in the Dragon's Dogma into a story for this new location and everything. Because, I mean, yeah, the dragon, like, in the first game, the dragon, it attacks, but it doesn't really feel like it, I mean, it just kind of chills afterwards. Like, after its first attack, it's just kind of the monsters that are the problem. The dragon doesn't really attack until you go after it. So I'm curious, because we got to see the dragon kind of going on a rampage there, which it does in the first game. You know, it does attack your hometown, but I don't know how we're gonna tie in this much, like 2 different factions, it almost looks like, into the dragon story.
Also appear in the game's key art. Ulrika, a bow wielder with a deep connection to the Arisen.
And that was another thing that caught me off guard, a deep connection to the Arisen. I'm not sure if they mean that and just like you're gonna talk to them a lot, or if they mean like she's like sort of like the dragon, I think it was the Dragon Forged from the first game, the guy who basically survived the fight with the dragon. I'm curious about that.
And Nadinia, a high priestess of the Beast Ring, which appear in the series for the first time.
And okay, so Nadinia, they mentioned Nadinia was an empress in the Capcom USA trailer. Well, I say Capcom USA, the first Dragon's Dogma 2 trailer. They mentioned that Nadinia was the empress. So it looks like a theocracy. It looks like a theocracy of like Khajiits are a new part of the story.
How will they affect your fate? The intricate relationships and situations you will encounter in the game are sure to keep you on your toes.
And then we've got Yennefer from
adventure,
Witcher.
You will come across familiar monsters from the previous game, as well as new monsters, such as Medusa. You can look forward to new player vocations and many new experiences unique to Dragon's Dogma 2.
Alright. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, there's a few other videos on here talking about Dragon's Dogma 2, but I don't see too much beyond the trailer and sort of the dev explanation. I do recommend checking out like the Rift to see like more about it. But let's take a look at GameSpot. See if they have anything new that we haven't seen. No, it looks like it's just...
It really feels like playing...
Okay, yeah, it looks like it's just a presentation we already saw. Alright then. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. It seems like an interesting game. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm not sure, have you ever played, like, Monster Hunter before? It's not formatted like Monster Hunter, but the combat is a little bit reminiscent of Monster Hunter in the sense of just, like, how flashy it is and, like, how mobile it is, like, grabbing onto monsters and then just kind of rolling around. But the difference is you have like skills here. Like, you have like skills you can assign to your weapons and you can use, which are pretty big. Yeah, I'm trying to think of if there's like a game I can compare this to. The DLC is kind of reminiscent of like a Souls-like game. You like Monster Hunter's combat? Yeah, okay. Then I think you'd like this game because it feels like to me, like you're playing a Monster Hunter combat, but it's customizable. So like you can, whenever you want, you can just kind of switch what your buttons do, sort of. Like you can, like maybe you're going into a cave, so you want to change your, you want to get ricochet arrows, but then maybe you're going into like an open field, so you'll change it to like open seeker homing missiles. And so it's just like little stuff like that you can do. I played a lot of Magic Archer when I was playing the first game, which I guess I can just show. My voice is like cracking. I can show a bit of Magic Archer, just sort of to show off sort of what this game does differently, and I think what this game did right. Honestly, I think Magic Archer is the best example of just like what the game did right. Let's see. This one shows. All right, so this is so in the first game, basically you had 3 colors of classes. So yellow classes was basically like your bow, and that was basically just bow and daggers. And then red was basically sword and shield based, and then blue was magic. But then there were 3, so you basically have your basic of those. You'd have your basic fighter, your basic mage, and your basic strider. And then you'd have a evolved version of those, which, I mean, it had some pros and some cons. So you'd have a fighter and a warrior, you'd have a mage and a sorcerer, and then you'd have a strider and a ranger. So basically the difference between like mage and sorcerer is like mage would be more like support based, whereas a sorcerer would use like heavy magic attacks. Like you could, like sorcerer will like summon meteors, it'll like summon tornadoes, stuff like that. Whereas a mage will like heal your allies or give you an elemental buff and stuff like that. So yeah, mage was basically like support, buff, and debuff, whereas sorcerer was just kind of all attack. And then you'd have your warrior, which was basically like a 2-handed version of the fighter, where you don't really worry about parrying and finesse. It was more so just do all the damage you can with warrior. And then a strider kind of got in there with the daggers, whereas a ranger focuses more on just like big arrow shots. And then assassin is mixing fighter and strider. And then Magic Archer is mixing mage with strider, and then Mystic and Knight mixes mage with fighter. So Mystic and Knight was cool because basically it let you enchant your shield to do different kinds of parries. So you could like parry someone and then you'd like summon fireballs, or you could parry someone and you could like store their attack and then release it back at them, and then different stuff like that. And then I think Mystic Knight had one of the coolest spells in the game, in my opinion. It was like, it was Abysmal Anguish, which you basically enchanted your melee weapon and it would turn into this like giant like magic mace, and it would just have like insane range, insane damage. It was really good. But Magic Archer was definitely the best class in my opinion, because I mean, I guess I'll show you. You basically get all the Strider dagger skills, so you get like all the mobility a Strider gets. But yeah, this is sort of like what the combat is like. And then, yeah, so you get all the Strider skills, but you also get some unique ones where you can basically use magic with your daggers. and you can honestly like buff yourself 4 times to do like twice the amount of damage with magic archer, which was kind of overpowered if you ask me, but I mean it felt good to use. Alright, so you can like cast spells with your daggers. And then there's like a chimera there. Instant reset was cool, but let's go to the, I mean the main part of Magic Archer is the archer part. So, and the reason I compare this game to Monster Hunter a lot is mainly because of the boss fights. I think the boss fights are kind of similar to Monster Hunter in the sense of like how you can climb on them, how you can like run away, come back. It's just sort of the interactions you can get, and on top of that, I think a big part of why I compare it to Monster Hunter is because of how you can target specific parts of bosses. So like with the Cyclops, you know, you'll attack their eye, but you can also like focus your attacks on like their right knee and make them like trip over and stuff like that. And like sometimes you'll see like an armored Cyclops, and so to like fight an armored Cyclops you'd want to use like lightning because they're wearing metal, or you'd want to like, you could like grab onto the Cyclops and you could like grab onto his helmet, and so he'll like try to scratch to get you off, and he'll like scratch off his helmet, and then you can like start shooting him in the eye. So stuff like that. And that was just sort of why I compare it to Monster Hunter in terms of like the interactivity you get with the monsters. But let's see, Ricochet Seeker was really good. Ricochet, you only really get you get the most use out of Ricochet when you're in like a dungeon, when you're in like usually like in the undead areas or in the DLC area. You'll get a lot of use out of it in the DLC area. I remember there's like these corridors where like undead will spawn, and you just like shoot Ricochet and you don't even have to do anything. The Ricochet will take care of it. This, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like he's going to the areas where you actually use each skill. He's just sort of using it wherever he wants. Infinite Cringe. I love Infinite Cringe. They do a really good job of just showing off how to use the different gameplay elements. They also do a lot of editing though. So right, they had like mimics. Right, so they're using the sixfold. This was the DLC boss.
Oh, fuck.
Let me see if... Let's see. Right. So, yeah, the shot that one-shot the dragon, there's basically like a skill for magic archers where you can basically you sacrifice one of your pawns, which I think is probably a big reason why they didn't add a multiplayer on with the DLC, because that seems like a bit of an oversight, you know, if you can just like sacrifice one of your party members' lives to shoot an arrow. But it was pretty cool because the pawn basically like becomes your arrow, and then it does like massive damage. I feel like I'm not showing off this game as well as I could be, because there's some awesome things you can do with the skills here. Ooh, and backfire immolation. Right, there's a skill where you for a magic archer, you can just set yourself on fire. And so you can just like run into enemies, or you can like grab onto them and set them on fire while you're on fire. It's a fun skill, especially when you start using it with other skills. But yeah, I feel like I'm not doing a good enough job of shilling this game. But I'm really excited for Dragon's Dogma 2. I'm really hoping it does well. I really want it to do well, because the first game was so much fun. I really liked the first game. and I'm hoping it lives up. The second game, the sequel, I hope it lives up to the first one.
Capcom with a recap of the first trailer, including some cool new gameplay.
So the Rift is a good channel that covers a lot of Dragon's Dogma stuff.
As you can expect from Dragon's Dogma combat. This most likely means we'll see new attack chains for all the weapon classes in the first game, which is truly amazing. Another interesting thing I noticed was how this Strider also got a new attack chain when mounting these Cyclops. These small gameplay changes improves the combat flow a lot, and I'm really glad to see that Capcom gives the combat their full attention. In the same clip, we also see some interesting changes to the warrior vocation. The way the longsword is now carried over the shoulder give your warrior a much more natural stance like we see in the Souls games. We also see that the warrior now has a grab attack that locks the enemy into place for a devastating attack. I love the grab attacks we had in the first game, and it's great to see that they will expand this function for more vocations in the sequel. Imagine the impressive grab attacks for the magic vocations in the next game. We also see two dagger
that really, for the magic vocations, that really tripped me up because he was using his hand to cast the spell and not his staff, which makes me curious about if this is even a mage or a sorcerer, because this might be like a new hybrid class or something, especially with the way they're showing off his melee capabilities. I'm curious if that's like a new class. Probably not. It's probably just a mage. But the new telekinesis thing is pretty awesome.
In the next game, we also see two dagger-wielding pawns here. This could be a strider, assassin, seeker, or a combination of these vocations. Neither of them have
a seeker, right? So I know there were some other vocations in Dragon's Dogma Online aside from the first game. Which unfortunately Dragon's Dogma Online was cut short. I believe the servers were shut down. But I know they had some unique classes that you could pick. Right, so this is the first game. This is the classes you can pick in the first game. I probably should have showed this when I was talking about it earlier. So there's like your basic fighter, your basic strider, and your basic mage. And then your sorcerer is like your upgraded version of the mage, where instead of support, it does like all attack. Your warrior is a different version of your fighter, not necessarily upgraded. At least not in the first game. I'm hoping in the second game. A warrior will be better, but warriors kind of got the short end of the stick in the first game. Rangers, a lot of people really like Ranger, just because you can get like a massive damage off one arrow. But personally, I like Striders better because you get a lot of cool dagger skills with Strider. But Assassin is just the best of both worlds. Assassin is probably the most versatile class in the entire game because you can literally use you can use a sword, you can use a shield, you can use a bow, and you can use daggers. Which is kind of crazy because you could use like a sword and a bow, or you could use like a sword and a shield, or you could use daggers and a shield. It was fun. It was really fun. And then Magic Archer is just the best class. Magic Archers could actually use a staff. They didn't have to use a bow, which was, or no. They always have their bow. They don't have to use daggers. I think you can replace your daggers with a staff, if I remember correctly. Which was pretty interesting because technically you could like use a staff to. I don't remember if you could enchant yourself with Magic Archer, but if you could, that would mean you could basically like enchant yourself with like lightning or holy, and then shoot your basic arrows, and then they would be that enchantment. And then Mystic Knight was pretty cool. Mystic Knight, the gameplay for Mystic Knight was basically you could pick between two real styles of gameplay with Mystic Knight. You could either be a parry god, where you just like parry every attack and it does like massive damage back at the enemy, or you could be a tank and you'd like just sit there and just like fire massive like Gatling gun, like magical Gatling guns at your enemies, which was kind of. I couldn't play Mystic Knight on the 360 because it would like freeze my game because of all the like projectiles I was shooting. But I'm curious to see if this has the Okay, here we go. I think this might be the... I think this is the Dragon's Dogma Online. They had an assassin, a berserker, a mercenary, and a druid. A fighter, a lancer, executioner, and a hunter. I think a hunter is the seeker. Though I don't see a ranger on here. This might be... Okay, yeah, this seems like another name for it. I'm not sure if this is real. I need to see if... I can't... Since Dragon's Dogma Online is shut down, I can't really... I don't really know how to check. I don't know how to check what the Dragon's Dogma Online classes were. But let's see right here. This can pull it up. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Fighter, sorcerer, warrior. Then we have a shield sage, which is interesting, where you use a large shield and a wand. And then elemental archer, which is seems like, okay, that's just magic archer. And then a priest. So I'm thinking a priest might be what they're adding to Dragon's Dogma 2, that class that had the sensor. I'm thinking that's probably a priest. And then we've got a hunter, which is solely the bow, and the seeker, which is only daggers. And you have a grappling hook with seeker. Okay. And then an alchemist, where you use a magic gauntlet. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting right there. Spirit Lancer. I'm quite curious about this. I think spears would be an awesome addition to Dragon's Dogma. That'd be pretty awesome. And then a magic scimitar. That's pretty cool as well. But yeah, it looks like, yeah, we have the Sphinx here from Dragon's Dogma Online. Looks like we're probably... If I had to guess, I mean, I'm assuming all of these are probably going to show up in Dragon's Dogma 2. I'd be surprised if they didn't. But yeah, oh, it looks like they have some images here. We never got to see a troll, I don't think, in the first game. And then there's the Sphinx. It looks like they redesigned the Sphinx. And then it looks like Zool is kind of like Diamond from the first game. And then Colossus, which is just a big Cyclops. And then a Lindworm. This is quite interesting right here, the Lindworm. I kind of hope they add that. And we never really got to go into the water in the first game, so I'd be pretty interested if they had some water bosses in the second game. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's too much more information about Dragon's Dogma 2 out right now, so I suppose this will probably be it for the stream. But yeah, in terms of just what we've got, what we're looking at for Dragon's Dogma 2, I'm pretty excited. You know, I'm pretty optimistic right now. Honestly, I'm just excited the game's getting a sequel at all. I mean, Dragon's Dogma was one of the most fun RPG experiences I ever had. I mean, it was the game that made me put down Skyrim. It was a lot of fun. So I'm hoping this game lives up to it, and I honestly think it will. Because I mean, honestly, if they just add to the combat system and they don't like take away any features, I can't see how this game could go wrong, honestly. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me tonight. Let's see. Do we have anything to tease for tomorrow? I think tomorrow, I believe, will be... Let me actually check. What am I uploading tomorrow? Let's go to YouTube Studio real quick. Alright, it looks like tomorrow I'll be uploading my Shoto villain cover reaction. And then after that will be the last unnamed cover that I haven't checked out yet. So we'll be reacting to that after that. But aside from that, Suki, I'm not sure if you're still here, but thank you so much for stopping by. It was a lot of fun. I know I kind of nerded out a lot on Dragon's Dogma, but that's what the stream was for. So I'm glad you stopped by, Suki. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you check out Dragon's Dogma. It's honestly a lot of fun, and I'd be interested to do some Dragon's Dogma streams going forward. I think that would be pretty fun as well. But I think that's it for me tonight. Thank you very much for watching. I guess I'll catch you later. I'll be uploading tomorrow and keeping up with my daily uploads for the time being. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.